The screeching alarm pierced Kyle Parker's sleep at precisely 6:30 a.m., the morning sunlight filtering through his bedroom blinds. He groaned, fumbling for the snooze button before reluctantly rolling out of bed. Today marked the start of something unprecedented, the first day of the Interplanetary Student Exchange Program at Westridge University, where he worked as a xenobiology professor. Earth had officially opened its doors to students from across the galaxy, and Kyle had volunteered to host one of them. "Mr. Whiskers, time for breakfast," Kyle called out, shuffling toward the kitchen in his worn slippers. A large orange tabby cat lazily stretched on the windowsill, its green eyes blinking slowly at its owner before it jumped down with a soft thud. Kyle poured some kibble into the cat's bowl and started his coffee maker. The apartment wasn't large, a modest two-bedroom in the university district, but the administration had assured him it would be sufficient for him and his alien guest. He glanced at the clock. 2 hours until he needed to be at the welcoming ceremony. The doorbell rang precisely at 8:15 a.m. as Kyle was adjusting his tie. Taking a deep breath, he opened the door to find a university official standing next to what appeared to be a tall, slender figure with blue-tinted skin and 4 arms. The alien had large, almond-shaped eyes that seemed to shimmer with an iridescent quality, and what looked like delicate gill-like structures on either side of its neck. "Professor Parker, this is Zexol, your exchange student from the planet Veridian," the official said with a bright smile. "Zexol is one of our top students in comparative biology." The alien extended one of its upper arms in what appeared to be an attempt at a handshake. "It is a pleasure to meet you, Professor Parker. I have studied your papers on Earth's ecological systems extensively." Kyle shook the offered hand, noting the cool, smooth texture of the alien's skin. "Welcome to Earth, Zexol. I hope your stay here will be educational and comfortable." After the official left, Kyle showed Zexol around the apartment, explaining various human appliances and customs. The alien seemed particularly interested in the bathroom facilities, taking notes on a thin, transparent device that resembled a tablet. "This will be your room," Kyle said, opening the door to the spare bedroom he had prepared. "I've tried to make it comfortable, but please let me know if you need any adjustments." Zexol's eyes widened as it surveyed the space. "This is most acceptable, Professor. On Veridian, we sleep in communal pods. Having an entire room to myself is quite luxurious." As they moved back toward the living room, a loud thump came from the kitchen, followed by the sound of something hitting the floor. Zexol immediately tensed, its gill-like structures flaring slightly. "What was that?" it asked, voice dropping to a whisper. "Probably just Mr. Whiskers getting into something he shouldn't," Kyle replied casually, heading toward the kitchen. Sure enough, the orange tabby had knocked over a container of treats on the counter and was happily batting them across the floor. When Zexol entered the kitchen behind Kyle, the cat looked up, tail flicking curiously. The reaction was immediate and dramatic. Zexol let out a high-pitched sound that Kyle's translator couldn't process and backed up against the wall, all 4 arms raised in what appeared to be a defensive posture. "What kind of monster is that?" the alien student asked, its voice trembling, eyes fixed on the cat. Kyle blinked in surprise before understanding dawned on him. "That's my cat, Mr. Whiskers. He's a pet, not a monster." Zexol didn't move, its breathing rapid and shallow. "A pet. That creature resembles the Morithian Deathstalker, a predator responsible for wiping out entire settlement colonies on 3 planets in the Cygnus sector." Kyle looked down at Mr. Whiskers, who had returned to batting around the treats, completely oblivious to the terror he was causing. "I assure you, Earth cats are domesticated animals. They're actually quite gentle and affectionate, most of the time." Zexol didn't look convinced. Its eyes, they appear to contain the same hypnotic properties used by death stalkers before they attack. "That's just how cats look," Kyle explained, picking up Mr. Whiskers to demonstrate. The cat purred loudly in his arms. "See, harmless." Zexol took a tentative step forward, still keeping its distance. "In my studies of Earth biology, I did not encounter information about humans keeping miniature predators in their living spaces. We've domesticated several species over our history." cats have lived alongside humans for thousands of years. They were originally kept to hunt rodents, but now they're mostly companions. As they talked, Kyle noticed Mr. Whiskers staring intently at Zexol, his tail swishing with interest. Before he could react, the cat wriggled free from his arms and bounded toward the alien. Zexol let out another untranslatable sound and scrambled backward, knocking into a chair and sending it crashing to the floor. Mr. Whiskers, startled by the noise, darted under the couch. "I apologize for frightening your cat," Zexol said, slowly righting itself. On Veridian, keeping predators as companions would be unthinkable. Our society values the preservation of prey instincts for survival. Kyle helped Zexol up. "No worries, I should have warned you about him, Mr. Whiskers is harmless, but I understand he might seem threatening if you've never seen a cat before. Perhaps this is an opportunity for xenobiological study," Zexol suggested, its scientific curiosity apparently overcoming its fear. "Could I observe the creature from a safe distance?" "Of course," Kyle said. "In fact, learning about domestic Earth animals might be valuable for your studies here." Over the next few days, Zexol maintained a cautious distance from Mr. Whiskers, observing the cat's behaviors and taking meticulous notes. Kyle found it amusing but tried not to show it, respecting that what seemed ordinary to him was alien and potentially frightening to Zexol. One evening, as Kyle was grading papers in the living room, he noticed Zexol sitting cross-legged on the floor, watching Mr. Whiskers groom himself on the windowsill. "I have been reviewing feline behavior patterns," Zexol said without looking away from the cat. "It seems they spend 70% of their time sleeping or resting. This is highly inefficient," Kyle smiled. "Efficiency isn't really a cat's primary concern." "What is its purpose then, if not for hunting rodents as you mentioned?" Kyle considered the question. "Companionship, mostly. Pets make us happy, they reduce stress and provide unconditional affection." Zexol tilted its head. "Fascinating. On Veridian, we seek emotional regulation through communal meditation and biochemical alignment." As they talked, Mr. Whiskers stretched and jumped down from the windowsill. To Kyle's surprise, instead of running away as he had been doing, the cat sauntered directly toward Zexol and sat down just a few feet away, staring at the alien with clear interest. Zexol froze. "What is it doing? Is this a prelude to an attack?" "No, he's curious about you," Kyle explained. "If you stay still, he might come closer to investigate." Sure enough, Mr. Whiskers crept forward cautiously, sniffing the air. Zexol remained perfectly motionless as the cat approached, its nose twitching as it detected the unfamiliar scent of the alien. "Its sensory capabilities appear quite acute," Zexol whispered, as if afraid speaking too loudly would provoke the cat. "Cats have excellent senses, especially smell and hearing," Kyle confirmed. Mr. Whiskers circled Zexol once then, apparently deciding the alien posed no threat, rubbed against one of its lower arms before settling down beside it. "It's vibrating," Zexol observed with alarm. Kyle laughed. "That's purring. It means he's happy and comfortable. It's a good sign he's accepting you." Zexol cautiously extended one hand toward the cat, moving slowly as Kyle had demonstrated days earlier. Mr. Whiskers sniffed the offered fingers, then butted his head against them. "The texture is softer than I anticipated," Zexol commented, gently stroking the cat's fur. "And the vibration creates a strangely pleasant sensation." The next morning, Kyle awoke to find his bedroom door open and Mr. Whiskers missing from his usual spot at the foot of the bed. Concerned, he went to check on Zexol, only to find a sight he never expected: the alien sleeping peacefully with Mr. Whiskers curled up on its chest, both of them seemingly content. Kyle decided not to disturb them and went to prepare breakfast. When Zexol emerged from the bedroom an hour later, the cat following at its heels, Kyle pretended not to notice anything unusual. "I believe I have made significant progress in my feline behavior studies," Zexol announced as it accepted a cup of tea. "I noticed," Kyle replied with a smile. "Mr. Whiskers seems to have taken a liking to you." Zexol's gill structures flushed slightly, which Kyle had learned indicated embarrassment or pride. "It appears the creature determined I was not a threat and decided to use me as a heat source during the night. That's a big honor in cat terms. He doesn't sleep with just anyone. As they ate breakfast, Kyle explained the day's schedule. They would be attending a welcome reception for all exchange students and their hosts at the university, followed by a tour of the campus. Will there be other Earth predators present? Zexol asked. Probably not, though some other hosts might have service animals, dogs mostly, Kyle replied. Which reminds me, we should leave soon. Do you have everything you need? Zexol nodded, gathering its notes and observation devices. As they prepared to leave, Mr. Whiskers watched from the couch, tail swishing lazily. Will your cat be safe alone in the dwelling? Zexol asked, genuine concern in its voice. He'll be fine. Cats are very independent, Kyle assured it as they headed out the door. The university campus buzzed with activity as humans and aliens from various worlds mingled in the main hall. Kyle introduced Zexol to several colleagues and other exchange students, including a gelatinous being from a water world and a silicon-based life form that communicated through light patterns. During a lull in the conversations, Zexol pulled out its note-taking device and showed Kyle detailed observations about Mr. Whiskers. I have categorized 17 distinct vocalizations and 32 tail positions, each seemingly indicating different emotional or physiological states, Zexol explained with obvious pride. That's incredibly thorough, Kyle said, impressed by the alien's dedication. I am considering a comparative study between Earth felines and similar-sized predators across known planets, Zexol continued. There are remarkable evolutionary parallels despite vastly different environmental pressures. Their conversation was interrupted by a commotion near the refreshment table. A tall, insectoid alien had apparently tasted something disagreeable and was making distressed clicking sounds. Several human staff members rushed to assist. Triflin digestive systems cannot process lactose, Zexol commented. The protein structures cause immediate gastric distress. Kyle nodded, making a mental note to be more careful about dietary restrictions for future events. As they watched the situation unfold, he noticed Zexol had begun to fidget, its lower arms tapping rhythmically against its sides. Is everything all right? He asked. I find myself concerned about Mr. Whiskers, Zexol admitted. Is it normal to experience anxiety regarding the welfare of a creature that resembles a deadly predator from another world? Kyle smiled. That's called attachment, and yes, it's perfectly normal. Humans develop strong bonds with their pets all the time. Fascinating. Veridians generally avoid emotional attachment to non-sentient species. It is considered inefficient. Efficiency isn't everything, Kyle replied. Sometimes the most rewarding relationships aren't the most practical ones. The reception continued for several more hours, with presentations from university officials and cultural performances from both human and alien participants. By the time they left, the sun was setting, casting long shadows across the campus. I found today's events informative but exhausting, Zexol said as they walked back to the apartment. Social interaction across species requires significant mental energy. I know what you mean, Kyle agreed. Even interacting with other humans can be tiring sometimes. When they arrived home, Mr. Whiskers greeted them at the door with loud meows, weaving between their legs. He appears agitated, Zexol observed, kneeling down to examine the cat more closely. Has his food supply been depleted? Kyle checked the automated feeder. No, he's had plenty to eat. He's probably just happy we're home. He might have been lonely. Lonely. Zexol repeated the word as if testing its meaning. Can such creatures experience complex emotional states? Absolutely. Cats and many other Earth animals have rich emotional lives. They form attachments, feel joy, fear, anger, many of the same emotions we do, just expressed differently. That evening, as Kyle prepared dinner, he noticed Zexol sitting on the floor, apparently attempting to communicate with Mr. Whiskers through a series of soft clicks and gentle hand movements. The cat watched with typical feline interest, half curious, half indifferent. What are you doing? Kyle asked. Testing a hypothesis, Zexol replied. If Earth felines share evolutionary parallels with other predatory species, they might respond to similar communication patterns. Any success? Inconclusive. He seems interested but uncomprehending. As days turned into weeks, Zexol's fascination with Mr. Whiskers grew. The alien began incorporating the cat into its academic studies, writing a paper on domestication patterns in terrestrial predators that quickly gained attention from both human and alien scholars. Kyle found himself impressed by Zexol's dedication and insight. The alien saw things about everyday Earth life that he had long taken for granted, offering fresh perspectives that enhanced his own understanding. One morning, Kyle entered the kitchen to find Zexol examining Mr. Whiskers with a small scanning device. His internal temperature has increased by 1.2 degrees since yesterday, Zexol reported with concern, and he refused his morning sustenance. Kyle frowned, moving closer to check on the cat. Mr. Whiskers did indeed look lethargic, his usually bright eyes dull and half-closed. "You're right, he doesn't look well," Kyle said, gently stroking the cat's head. "We should take him to the vet, the animal doctor." Zexol immediately began gathering its observation equipment. "I will accompany you. My data might be useful for diagnosis." Kyle called the veterinary clinic and secured an emergency appointment. As they traveled there by car, Zexol's first experience with Earth ground transportation, the alien kept a constant watch on Mr. Whiskers, who lay quietly in his carrier. "His respiratory rate is elevated," Zexol noted. "And there's a slight discharge from his nasal passages." At the clinic, the veterinarian, Dr. Morgan, listened carefully as both Kyle and Zexol described Mr. Whiskers' symptoms. The doctor seemed particularly interested in Zexol's detailed observations. "These readings are quite helpful, Doctor," Morgan said, examining the data on Zexol's device. "We don't usually get such precise measurements from pet owners." After a thorough examination, Dr. Morgan diagnosed Mr. Whiskers with a respiratory infection and prescribed antibiotics. "It's not uncommon in older cats, but you caught it early. He should recover fully with treatment." "What is the recovery probability percentage?" Zexol asked anxiously. "With prompt treatment like this, over 95%, the vet assured them. "You did the right thing bringing him in quickly." On the drive home, Zexol cradled the cat carrier on its lap, occasionally peering in to check on Mr. Whiskers. "I find myself experiencing distress at his illness," the alien admitted. "Is this a normal response to a non-sentient companion?" "Completely normal," Kyle said. "We worry about those we care for, regardless of species. On Veridian, resources would not typically be allocated for the medical treatment of non-sentient beings unless they served a critical function. Earth's relationship with animals is complicated," Kyle explained. "We've evolved alongside many species, forming bonds that go beyond practical considerations." That evening, Kyle showed Zexol how to administer the medicine to Mr. Whiskers, a task that proved challenging given the cat's reluctance. After several attempts and a few scratches on Kyle's hands, they managed to get the first dose into him. "He does not understand we are attempting to help," Zexol observed as Mr. Whiskers retreated under the couch. His instincts override reason. "That's cats for you," Kyle said, applying antiseptic to his scratches. "All instinct and attitude." Over the next few days, they developed a routine for Mr. Whiskers' care. Zexol proved surprisingly adept at coaxing the cat to take his medicine, using techniques it had observed in various animal handling videos. "I have modified my approach based on feline psychology," Zexol explained after successfully medicating Mr. Whiskers without incident. "By approaching from his peripheral vision and maintaining calm respiratory patterns, I minimize his threat response." Kyle was impressed. "You might have missed your calling as a veterinarian." As Mr. Whiskers began to recover, Zexol's interest in Earth's animals expanded beyond cats. The alien spent hours studying videos of various species, from elephants to octopuses, marveling at the diversity of life on a single planet. "Earth's evolutionary history has produced remarkable adaptations," Zexol commented one evening as they watched a nature documentary. On most worlds, dominant species tend to outcompete others, resulting in less diversity. We've had our share of mass extinctions, Kyle pointed out, but life here has always bounced back in new and surprising ways. Mr. Whiskers, now fully recovered, jumped onto the couch and settled between them, purring contentedly as Zexol gently stroked his fur. I have been invited to present my research at the Interplanetary Biological Conference next month, Zexol announced. My paper on domestic predator-human symbiosis has generated significant interest. That's fantastic, Kyle said. It's a prestigious conference. Will you focus on cats specifically or broader domestication patterns? I wish to explore the emotional bonds formed between species that would naturally be predator and prey. It defies evolutionary logic, yet creates mutual benefits. The weeks leading up to the conference were busy ones. Zexol conducted additional research, interviewing other pet owners and consulting with experts in animal behavior. Kyle helped review the presentation, offering insights from the human perspective. The night before the conference, Zexol seemed unusually quiet during dinner, nervous about tomorrow. Kyle asked, "Not about the presentation itself," Zexol replied. "I am contemplating the conclusion of my time on Earth. The exchange program ends in 6 weeks, and I will return to Veridian." Kyle hadn't allowed himself to think much about Zexol's eventual departure. Over the months, he had grown accustomed to the aliens' presence, enjoying their discussions and shared discoveries. "You'll be missed," he said simply, "by both of us." He glanced at Mr. Whiskers, who was cleaning himself nearby. "I have been researching the possibility of continuing my studies here," Zexol said hesitantly. "Westridge University offers an extended program for interplanetary scholars. However, housing arrangements would need to be secured." Kyle understood the unasked question. "You know, this apartment does feel a bit empty when it's just me and Mr. Whiskers. If you wanted to apply for the extended program, I'd be happy to continue our current arrangement." Zexol's gill structures flushed with what Kyle now recognized as pleasure. "That would be most satisfactory, Mr. Whiskers requires continued observation for my long-term research." "Of course," Kyle said with a smile. "It's all for science." The day of the conference arrived, and Kyle accompanied Zexol to the university's main auditorium, which had been modified to accommodate various alien physiologies. Atmospheric chambers lined the walls for species that couldn't breathe Earth's air, and gravity adjusters were available for those from higher or lower gravity worlds. Zexol's presentation was scheduled for the afternoon session. As they waited, Kyle noticed the alien repeatedly checking its notes, a human habit it had apparently adopted. "Your research is solid," Kyle reassured it. "You know this subject better than anyone here." When Zexol's turn came, it moved confidently to the stage, activating a holographic display that showed images of Mr. Whiskers alongside scientific data. The audience, a mix of humans and various alien species, watched attentively. The domestic feline, commonly known as the house cat, represents a unique evolutionary case study, Zexol began. Despite retaining predatory instincts and capabilities, these creatures have formed symbiotic relationships with humans, providing emotional benefits that transcend practical utility. The presentation continued with Zexol sharing detailed observations and analyses. Kyle felt a surge of pride watching his alien guest articulate complex ideas about something as seemingly ordinary as a house cat. "What is particularly noteworthy," Zexol said, approaching its conclusion, "is the capacity for cross-species emotional bonding. When I first encountered the creature known as Mr. Whiskers, I perceived it as a threat, similar to deadly predators from my own experience. This perception was based on evolutionary instinct, a reasonable fear response." Zexol paused, its gill structures expanding slightly. However, through observation and interaction, this fear transformed into curiosity, then understanding, and finally, what humans aptly term affection. This transformation suggests that interspecies relationships need not be constrained by evolutionary programming or biological history. After the presentation, Numerous attendees approached Zexol with questions and comments. Several alien scholars seemed particularly interested in the emotional aspects of the research. Your work challenges the Veridian principle of emotional efficiency, one blue-skinned alien commented. Have you encountered resistance from your academic peers? Some, Zexol admitted. But scientific progress often requires challenging established principles. As they left the conference that evening, Kyle could tell Zexol was pleased with the reception of its work. You've given them a lot to think about, he said as they walked home under a starlit sky. Not just about cats, but about how different species can connect across biological and cultural divides. It is a metaphor for larger interplanetary relations, Zexol agreed. If a Veridian can form a bond with an Earth predator, perhaps there are other unexpected connections waiting to be discovered. When they arrived home, Mr. Whiskers greeted them at the door, meowing insistently until Zexol picked him up. He appears to have missed our presence, the alien observed, cradling the cat with practiced ease. Told you he had complex emotions, Kyle said with a smile. That night, as Kyle prepared for bed, he heard Zexol in the living room, apparently recording new observations about Mr. Whiskers. The alien's voice was soft but clear as it documented the cat's behavior. Subject demonstrates preference for elevated sleeping positions, particularly those offering both security and visibility. Current location, top of bookshelf. Posture indicates relaxed vigilance, a state unique to domesticated predators who maintain hunting instincts while existing in a secure environment. Kyle smiled to himself, remembering Zexol's initial terror at the sight of Mr. Whiskers. The transformation had been remarkable from fear to scientific interest to genuine affection. The following weeks brought new routines as Zexol began preparations for extending its stay on Earth. There were forms to complete, academic proposals to submit, and cultural orientation sessions to attend. One evening, as they shared dinner, Zexol brought up a concern. I have been researching Earth seasons. Winter approaches, bringing lower temperatures and reduced daylight. Will Mr. Whiskers require additional care during this period? Kyle explained about indoor heating and how cats often became more cuddly during colder months. He'll probably sleep more and seek out warm spots in the apartment. I shall adjust my observation schedule accordingly, Zexol noted seriously. Perhaps additional thermal bedding would be beneficial. The next day, Zexol returned from a shopping trip with a plush cat bed and several toys designed for indoor play. Kyle watched with amusement as the alien carefully arranged these items around the apartment, measuring optimal distances from heat sources. Mr. Whiskers is becoming quite spoiled, he commented as the cat immediately claimed the new bed, kneading it with his paws before settling down. It is not spoiling to provide for specific environmental needs, Zexol countered. Besides, his comfort facilitates better observational data. Of course, Kyle said, hiding a smile. It's all for science. As winter approached, the university campus transformed. Trees lost their leaves, holiday decorations appeared, and students both human and alien bundled up against the cold. Zexol, coming from a warmer world, invested in thermal clothing and seemed fascinated by the concept of snow. Frozen precipitation that temporarily alters the entire landscape, the alien marveled after the first snowfall. Veridian has no equivalent weather pattern, Mr. Whiskers showed his own response to the changing season, spending more time curled up in sunny spots and becoming more affectionate in the evenings. Zexol documented these behavioral changes meticulously, developing what it called a seasonal response profile for domestic felines. One cold Sunday morning, as Kyle was enjoying his coffee, Zexol approached with an unusually hesitant manner. I have received communication from the Veridian Science Academy, it said. They are interested in my research on interspecies relationships and have proposed funding for an extended study. That's wonderful news, Kyle replied. Your work deserves recognition. There is a complication, Zexol continued. They suggest including specimens for direct observation on Veridian. Specifically, they proposed transporting Mr. Whiskers for a period of study. Kyle blinked in surprise. They want to take my cat to another planet, only temporarily, Zexol hurried to add. With all necessary safety protocols and environmental adaptations, the opportunity to observe a domestic Earth predator in a controlled Veridian setting would provide valuable comparative data. Kyle looked over at Mr. Whiskers, who was watching them from his perch on the windowsill, tail swishing slowly. The idea seemed absurd at first, sending a house cat across interstellar space for scientific research. What would this involve exactly? He asked cautiously. Zexol explained the details: specialized transport accommodations, environmental controls to mimic Earth conditions, regular health monitoring, and a guaranteed return after 3 months of observation. The Academy would cover all expenses and provide compensation for the temporary separation, Zexol added. Mr. Whiskers would be treated with utmost care. Kyle considered the proposal. And you would be there with him. He knows you now, trusts you. I would oversee all aspects of his care and study, Zexol confirmed. No procedures would be performed that might cause distress or harm. After much discussion and careful consideration, Kyle agreed to the proposal with specific conditions: regular video communications to check on Mr. Whiskers, a comprehensive health check before and after the journey, and the right to terminate the study if he felt the cat was suffering in any way. The preparations for Mr. Whiskers' interplanetary journey became a project in themselves. Zexol designed a special containment unit that would maintain Earth-like conditions throughout the trip, complete with familiar bedding, toys, and even recordings of household sounds to provide comfort. The transport vessel has been modified with a dedicated feline habitat section, Zexol explained, showing Kyle the detailed plans. Gravity, atmosphere, temperature, and light cycles will match his normal environment. As the departure date approached, Kyle found himself experiencing unexpected anxiety. Mr. Whiskers had been his companion for 7 years, a constant presence in his daily life. The apartment would feel empty without the cat's meowing demands for breakfast and evening cuddles. The night before the scheduled departure, Kyle found Zexol in the living room, engaged in what appeared to be a serious conversation with Mr. Whiskers. "We will journey to a new world together," the alien was saying softly as the cat blinked slowly at it. "You will contribute to interspecies understanding and perhaps change Veridian perspectives on emotional bonds with non-sentient beings." Kyle cleared his throat, feeling like he had interrupted something private. "Everything ready for tomorrow," Zexol looked up. "All preparations are complete." The transport vessel arrives at 0900 hours. "I'll miss him," Kyle admitted. "The apartment's going to be quiet. The time will pass quickly," Zexol assured him, "and you will receive daily updates on his activities and health status." The morning came too soon. The specialized transport container sat ready in the living room, its interior visible through transparent panels. Mr. Whiskers, sensing something unusual was happening, had hidden under the bed, requiring both Kyle and Zexol to coax him out. When the Veridian transport officials arrived, Zexol handled all the technical details while Kyle said his goodbyes to Mr. Whiskers, gently stroking the cat's fur and whispering reassurances. "Be good for Zexol," he said softly. "Show those aliens what Earth cats are all about." With final checks complete, Mr. Whiskers was secured in his transport unit, looking surprisingly calm as he settled onto the familiar bedding. Zexol's luggage, mostly scientific equipment and data storage devices, was loaded alongside. "I will ensure his well-being," Zexol promised as they prepared to leave, "and I will continue our research with the highest standards." "I know you will," Kyle replied. "Safe travels to both of you." As the transport vessel departed, Kyle returned to his suddenly quiet apartment. The absence of Mr. Whiskers was immediately noticeable. No cat toys scattered across the floor, no furry presence weaving between his legs as he prepared dinner. True to its word, Zexol sent daily updates. At first, they were primarily focused on Mr. Whiskers' adjustment to the journey, his eating habits, sleep patterns, and vital signs. All readings were normal, though Zexol noted the cat spent more time sleeping than usual, likely a response to the subtle differences in the artificial environment. When they arrived on Veridian, the communications became more interesting. Zexol sent videos of Mr. Whiskers exploring his specially designed habitat, complete with climbing structures and observation windows that allowed him to see the alien landscape outside while remaining in a controlled Earth-like environment. The Science Academy members are fascinated by his predatory behaviors, Zexol reported in one message. His ability to track small moving objects and his pouncing technique have been particularly noted. Several researchers have requested permission to conduct observational studies. Kyle watched the videos with a mixture of amusement and pride. Mr. Whiskers, it seemed, had become something of a celebrity on Veridian, the first Earth cat to visit the planet, and an ambassador of sorts for domestic Earth species. As weeks passed, Zexol's reports indicated growing interest from the broader Veridian community. Public viewing sessions had been arranged where citizens could observe Mr. Whiskers from a distance, and educational programs about Earth's domestic animals had been developed for schools. There has been a philosophical shift in some academic circles, Zexol noted in one communication. The concept of forming emotional bonds with non-sentient species is being reevaluated. Several prominent ethicists have proposed revisions to traditional Veridian perspectives on interspecies relationships. By the time the 3-month study period was nearing its end, Mr. Whiskers had apparently adjusted fully to his temporary home. Zexol reported that the cat had developed preferences for certain Veridian synthesized treats, created to match the nutritional profile of Earth cat treats, and had established a routine that included regular interaction with the research team. He appears to recognize individual researchers and adjusts his behavior accordingly, Zexol observed. With those who speak softly and move slowly, he demonstrates greater affection, while maintaining distance from those who make sudden movements or loud sounds. The day of their return arrived with mixed emotions for Kyle. He was eager to have Mr. Whiskers back, but also recognized the importance of the work Zexol had accomplished. The apartment had been thoroughly cleaned and prepared, with new cat supplies and fresh bedding waiting. When the transport vessel landed, Kyle was waiting at the designated arrival area. Zexol emerged first, its blue skin slightly paler than Kyle remembered, perhaps from the extended time away from Veridian's sunlight. Professor Parker, the alien greeted him formally before breaking into what Kyle recognized as its version of a smile. "It is good to see you again." "Welcome back," Kyle replied warmly. "How was the journey?" "Uneventful, which is optimal for interstellar travel," Zexol said as they walked toward the cargo area where Mr. Whiskers' transport unit was being unloaded. The cat was awake and alert inside his container, ears perked up as he spotted Kyle. When the unit was opened, Mr. Whiskers stepped out cautiously, sniffing the air before recognizing his owner and trotting over to rub against Kyle's legs. "He appears to remember you," Zexol observed unnecessarily, its scientific tone belied by the pleased flutter of its gill structures. "Cats don't forget their people," Kyle said, kneeling to pet Mr. Whiskers properly. "Did he behave himself on Veridian?" "He was an exemplary research subject and cultural ambassador," Zexol reported proudly. The Science Academy has expressed interest in establishing a permanent Earth animal observation program based on the success of our study. Back at the apartment, Mr. Whiskers immediately began a thorough inspection, sniffing every corner as if checking that nothing had changed in his absence. Zexol unpacked its equipment, including several new devices acquired on Veridian. "I have compiled comprehensive data on Mr. Whiskers' adaptation to a non-Earth environment," the alien explained, setting up a holographic display on the living room table. "The findings suggest remarkable adaptability in domestic Earth predators, with implications for potential interplanetary pet transportation protocols." As Zexol launched into a detailed explanation of its research, Kyle half listened, watching Mr. Whiskers settle back into his favorite spot on the windowsill as if he'd never left. Some things, it seemed, remained constant across the galaxy. That evening, with Mr. Whiskers curled up between them on the couch, Kyle asked Zexol about its future plans. "The Science Academy has offered me a position leading a new department focused on interspecies relationships," Zexol said. "It would involve regular travel between Veridian and Earth." "That sounds like an important opportunity," Kyle replied. "Will you accept?" Zexol was silent for a moment, its long fingers gently stroking Mr. Whiskers' fur. "I am considering it. However, I find myself reluctant to leave Earth permanently. There is still much to learn here." "You know you always have a place to stay when you're on Earth," Kyle offered. "Mr. Whiskers would miss you if you disappeared completely." "Just Mr. Whiskers?" Zexol asked, displaying the dry humor it had developed during its time on Earth. Kyle smiled. "I might notice your absence too." As they sat together, the cat purring contentedly between them, Kyle reflected on the unlikely friendship that had formed a human, an alien, and a cat that had once been mistaken for a monster. Across the vast differences of biology, culture, and evolutionary history, they had found common ground in curiosity, compassion, and the simple pleasure of a cat's purr. "What are you contemplating?" Zexol asked, noticing Kyle's thoughtful expression. "Just thinking about first impressions," Kyle replied. "And how wrong they can be." Zexol nodded, understanding immediately. "Indeed, what appears monstrous at first glance may simply be unfamiliar, Mr. Whiskers stretched and rolled over, exposing his belly in what both now recognized as a sign of complete trust. From terrifying predator to beloved companion, the transformation had been remarkable for both the cat and his alien observer. Outside the window, stars became visible in the darkening sky, countless worlds with their own forms of life, their own potential for connection and understanding. Whatever the future held, the bonds formed in this small apartment had changed perspectives across light years, proving that friendship could transcend the boundaries of planets and species. And it had all begun with a simple question: what kind of monster is that?